Hello class. In this video we're going to be solving percent word problems. Now before you begin, I do want to remind you to take detailed notes because I will be looking for these notes before you are allowed to retake the assessment. Now before we go into any problems, there is some vocabulary you are going to need to copy down because it is important for you to understand this vocab before you actually understand how to find a percent of a number. So obviously the most important one is going to be understanding what a percent is, and that's just a ratio out of 100. And a markup and a markdown are actually very similar, and what they are just percentages that either raise up the value of an item or they devalue it, which means they bring the value down. So markup examples are tips and taxes and add-ons, markdowns are coupons and discounts. Now we have two items that a lot of students interchange with one another. They think they're the same, but they're actually a bit different. So we have total and sales, or subtotal and sales price. Now subtotal is the price of an item before markups or markdowns. So you can also call it the sticker price. Usually that's identified as 100% of the price. A sales price is after markup and markdowns. And the percent value on this varies based on if you're increasing the value or you're decreasing the value. Now, for our first example, we see that Alex spent $35 on a new pair of gloves, and that was the subtotal. There was an 11% tax, and we want to know the sales price. Now, for problems like this involving tax, where they give you the total of an item and they want to find the new price, or if they give you a coupon and they want to find the new price, there's actually two ways of doing this. So I'm going to show you right now one of the ways, and then I'll show you the other way, which is very similar. Now, both methods, we'll call this method A, both of these methods are going to have you identify that $35 is 100% of the price, because that's your subtotal. Now, we know we're going to have to find 11% because that's our tax. Now, I'm not going to be able to go from 100% to 11% automatically without using a goofy ratio. So instead what I'll do is I'm going to go from 100% down to 1%. And I can actually use 1 as a percentage with any of my values because 1 times anything will give me that exact value. So I'm going to divide 100 by 100 to get me to 1. And whatever I do to my percentages, I'm going to do the same thing to my second value. And I'm going to see that 35 cents is 1% of the gloves. And I'm going to want to go to 11% now from 1, which is just by multiplying by 11. I'm going to do the same thing with my numerator. And 11 times 35 cents is going to give me $3.85. Now this value over here is just my tax value, and we wanted to know the sales price. So what I'll have to do is I'll have to add the $35 from the original purchase of the gloves and the $3.85 from the tax. And when I do that, I'm going to see that the total sales price is $38.85. And I'm also going to write a sentence really quickly so my reader understands that I understand the work. $38.85 is my sales price. Now, over here, while we did solve our problem on this double number line, in method B, what we're going to do, use a different pen color. In method B, what we're going to do is similar to the last method. I'm going to still label that $35 as my 100%. But in this case, I'm not going to look for 11%. I'm actually going to look for 111%. Because my $35 and my tax value added together, so in this case my 100% plus my 11% is going to be my sales price of that 111%. So much like before, I want to find a common factor between 100 and 111. And we know from before we should use 1%. I'm still dividing by 100. And I'm going to divide my $35 by 100 again. We know that's 35 cents. And this method actually allows you to skip a step because we won't have to add my 11%, that 385, to my subtotal of $35 because we can just go directly from 1% to 111 by multiplying by a factor of 111. And that'll give us the exact value we're looking for. That's that $38.35. I'm sorry, 85 cents. That's going to be my sales price. And just like before, you're going to want to do the same thing. You're going to want to write your sentence over here just like as we did before so that your reader understands that you understand the problem. Now, in this example, it's a little bit different because you're going to have to want to read your question carefully. So here, in this example, we see that the sales price, meaning the final price of an item, was $96 after Henry used a 40% off coupon. And I want to know the original price. So you're going to have to think to yourself, well, the original price, that original price was 100%. I knew I took 40% off, but that means 100%, that original percent, minus that 40%, we should actually be looking for 60% here. Now, this is only in the case when we have a coupon. If we had a tax or something like that, we would actually add that percentage value to that. So here, we're actually looking for 100% because we don't know what that is. That's our sales price. I'm going to put a little X here so we know that we're looking for it. I do know that 60% was $96. And remember, again, that's because we took that 40% away from that 100. So that 60% is $96. And then we are going to look for, instead over here, 10% of our value, since 10% is a scale factor of 60 and 100. So to go from 60 to 10, we would divide by 6. We're going to do that same thing with our dollar value. That's going to give us $16 in this case. And to go from 10% to 100, we're going to be multiplying by 10. So 10 times 10 is 100%. 16 times 10 is going to give us $160. And again, I'm going to want to write my final sentence over here that $160 is my subtotal. Or you could also say my original price. Now, in this example, we have that in Lake County. We'll ignore that. In Lake County, California, there were 1,104 acres of forest lost to the flames, so those forest fires. And that's 92% of the forest. We want to know how many acres there are in total in this county. So what we're going to do is we're going to label that 92% is that 1,104 acres. And again, I'm going to have to look for that 100% here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to find a common factor between 92 and 100%. And just like last time, I know that 1% is a factor of any number, so I'm going to go from 92 to 1% by dividing by 92. I'm going to go from 1,104, divide that by 92, and I'll see that that's just 12 acres. So 1% of the land is 12 acres. And to go from 1% to 100, we multiply by a factor of 100. We'll do that similarly here. And we'll see that there are 1,200 acres of land in the Lake County, California. So again, we're going to want to write there are 1,200 acres. I'm just going to put A for acres in Lake County. In our final example, we're actually not given any percents here. We see that 650 students go to HMS, and unfortunately there's a flu going around, so only 572 of them showed up for class. We want to know what percent is actually here, and here's the important part. So what percent is present and what percent were absent. So you want to make sure that you're reading the questions really carefully. So in this example, what we're going to do is we are going to label my 650 students as our 100% and our 572 students as a mystery percent. We don't know what that is. Now, the most common misconception here is that students will try to find a common percent, but we don't have a common percent here to work with. So what instead we're going to do is find a common value of students between 572 and 650. And just like with our percents, we're going to use one student, I should say. One student. Now, there is something important I want to point out here. Because this is a common mistake between quite a few of you. So I know I want to get to one single student, so that's 1S over here. And from 650 to one student, I'm going to divide that by 650. Now, when I do that with 100, you're going to see something a little goofy happen here. So if I divide 100, I'm going to show you right here in a calculator, 100 by 650, I'm going to get a very long random number here. So this 1, 5, blah, 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 blah. Now, there are quite a few of you who would round this number, but this is going to change your final answer. So you are not going to want to keep it as that. On your notes or on a test, of course, you can say, oh, well, this is about 0.15 yada, yada, yada percent. You can put that if you want. You don't have to write down all those values. But on your calculator, you're not going to want to erase this, and you're not going to want to round it on your calculator. Instead, what you're going to do is you're just going to directly multiply this value over here, this percentage of one person, by 572, since that is how many people we're looking for. So we went from 650 to one person, from one person to 572, and we'll do that similarly with our percentage. And you'll see here that when we multiply this by 572, we're going to get 88%. Now here, we haven't fully answered our question because it's asking us what percent of the students were present. So I can say right here, I'm going to write this in black, 88% of students were at school. And I also need to write what percent of students were absent. So obviously, there's a difference between 100 and 88 of just 12. So I know, I'm going to write this over here in its own separate little box, 12% of students were absent. All right, that will conclude this activity. Please make sure that you complete the retake activity, that worksheet from Power Learning. If you have any questions, feel free to message me on Power Learning, or you may message me on Remind as well. Thank you.